What happens when a CEO scrubs showroom floors to see who's dirtying his company's name? Zeke Johnson stood outside his 10th dealership location, a mid-sized car lot tucked between a discount mattress store and a strip mall off Highway 81. It had been 6 years since he bought the auto chain from a retiring couple. The stores had promise, and most still did well, but this one had been slipping. Online reviews were mixed. Some customers praised the deals. Others said they'd been misled. Zeke didn't want hearsay anymore. He needed to see it for himself. He pulled his cap down lower, adjusted the fake scar on his cheek, and zipped up his janitor jumpsuit. The disguise was solid light stubble, new glasses, and 30 pounds lighter than when his face was on the company website. None of the employees here had ever met him. That was by design. One of the perks of running a 10-store chain, anonymity at the ground level. Inside, the showroom buzzed with the usual hum of phone calls, foot traffic, and rolling swivel chairs. A glossy red SUV spun slowly on a platform in the center. Zeke scanned the room until a short, wiry man with thinning gray hair spotted him. "You the new guy?" the man barked, clipboard in hand. "Yeah, Zayden," Zeke replied, using his undercover name. "Corporate sent me to help with maintenance and cleanup. Whatever, just stay out of sight when customers are around. Don't speak unless spoken to." The man grunted, scribbling something. "I'm Mitch, sales manager." Zeke nodded. He grabbed a mop from the supply closet and started wiping down the showroom floor. It was menial, but he didn't mind. It gave him a clear view of everything and everyone. By mid-morning, he'd already noticed a few things. 1, the place was short-staffed. 1 receptionist, 3 salespeople, and a single finance guy juggled everything. It explained the messy front desk and the unwashed windows. 2, 1 salesperson, a tall woman with a calm voice and sharp eyes, treated every customer like family. He overheard her name, Kenna Lowell. She offered test drives without pressure, explained financing clearly, and even grabbed bottled water for an elderly couple. 3, Mitch. Zeke watched as Mitch hovered near the sales desks, interrupting conversations, whispering things into salespeople's ears, and then backing off with a smug nod. It seemed harmless until just after lunch. A young couple walked in, early 20s, clearly nervous. The girl clutched a folder tight to her chest. Zeke was wiping near the front when he heard Mitch call out, "Chris, you're up. Take him." Chris, a lanky guy with gelled hair and flashy shoes, approached the couple with a wide grin. "Hey folks, looking to drive off today?" "Maybe," the guy said. "We saw the ad for the used Corolla. Said 9,000, low mileage. Great car. Let's talk numbers," Chris said, motioning them to a desk. Zeke kept wiping near the corner but angled his ear closer. 20 minutes passed. Then the girl's voice rose slightly. "Wait, what's this documentation fee?" "For 100. Chris replied. "Standard fee. It's non-negotiable. Everyone pays it." "And this pre-delivery inspection charge?" the guy asked. "Also standard. We have to legally charge that," Chris said smoothly. Zeke paused. That was a lie. Dealerships often added bogus fees, but none were legally required. Especially not pre-delivery inspections on used cars. Zeke knew they'd been cut from corporate policy last year. The couple looked at each other. We can't afford this," the guy said softly. Chris leaned in, voice low but firm. "You'll lose the car if you walk. Another buyer's already interested. These deals go fast." Zeke gripped the mop handle tighter. His mouth dried. He watched the girl's hands tremble as she tried to calculate the total. That's when Kenna walked by and paused. "Everything all right here?" she asked, eyeing the paperwork. Chris gave her a tight smile. "All good, Kenna." Kenna's eyes scanned the fees. Her brow furrowed. "You added the inspection fee?" "Yeah. Standard." No, it's not, she said flatly. We don't charge that anymore. Chris shrugged. They didn't seem to mind. They're about to walk, Kenna said, turning to the couple. You don't have to pay any of that. Let me help you. Chris stood up, face tightening. This is my sale. Not if you're lying, Kenna fired back, her voice calm but firm. Mitch stormed over. What's going on? Zeke stepped back, pretending to mop behind a column. Kenna didn't hesitate. Chris is adding fake fees again. Mitch scowled. We've talked about this. Keep it off the floor. Chris hissed. You want us to hit quota or not? Zeke felt the heat rise in his chest. He couldn't step in yet, but he knew what he'd just witnessed. Lying to a young couple, pressuring them with fake urgency. Mitch brushing it off like it was normal. He wasn't just wiping floors anymore. He was watching the cracks widen. Zeke spent the next 2 hours quietly observing from corners, scrubbing baseboards, organizing dusty supply shelves, all under the guise of being invisible. He didn't need to act much. No one offered him eye contact. Mitch barely looked his way unless he needed a spill cleaned. The sales team moved around him like he was a fixture on the wall. Near the front desk, Kenna tapped away at her workstation. Eyes narrowed, lips pressed in a thin line. She kept glancing toward the break room, where Chris had disappeared 10 minutes earlier. The tension hadn't left her shoulders since their earlier confrontation. Zeke made his way toward the service area in back, where a single mechanic worked in a cramped garage bay. The air was thick with oil and exhaust. The mechanic, a middle-aged man with a sleeve of faded tattoos and a compressive knee brace, glanced up as Zeke stepped in. You the janitor they sent? He asked, wiping sweat from his forehead. Yeah, Zeke replied. Don't touch the diagnostic cart. They'll blame you if something goes wrong, the mechanic said, then leaned back under the hood of a Chevy Cruze. Zeke grabbed a broom and started sweeping around the lift. The mechanic grunted slightly as he reached for a socket wrench, wincing as he shifted weight onto his knee. You're the only one back here? Zeke asked. Yup, been that way 3 weeks now. Other guy quit after Mitch told him to pull a double without notice. Twice. Zeke paused. No temp or backup? Only if it's a safety issue, the mechanic said, voice muffled under the hood. Otherwise, I just work longer. You get used to it. Zeke didn't respond. He swept in silence until the mechanic emerged, wiping his hands. Name's Rudy, he said. Been turning wrenches since before half the sales team learned to shave. Zayden, Zeke said. First day. Rudy eyed him for a second. Watch your back. Mitch eats new hires alive. And don't let Chris talk to you if he's in the mood to rant. Rant about what? His commission. His leads. Kenna. Anything that doesn't make him look like the hottest thing since touchscreens. Zeke nodded once. Rudy's tone wasn't bitter, it was exhausted. Later that afternoon, Zeke saw Kenna speaking with a customer near the waiting area. A mother with 2 kids clutched a folder of paperwork. Kenna was kneeling slightly, showing the youngest how to use the vending machine, her voice patient and warm. Mitch passed by and muttered under his breath, You're not a babysitter. Kenna didn't respond, just smiled at the boy and handed him a pack of crackers. Zeke's phone buzzed in his pocket. A message from his assistant, sent to his Zayden number. It was a forwarded complaint from a customer who'd visited this location 2 days ago, claimed a salesperson refused to return their keys during a trade-in discussion, then insulted them when they changed their mind. Zeke's stomach tightened. He hadn't heard that story yet. He stepped outside for a moment, phone to his ear, pretending to make a call. He dialed the number linked to the complaint. A man picked up. Hello. This is Zayden from Customer Relations, Zeke said. You left a message about your experience at our dealership? Yeah. This guy Chris, I think, took my keys during a trade appraisal. then refused to give them back until I heard him out about financing. I told him I wasn't comfortable, and he said I was wasting his time. I had to threaten to call the cops before he handed them over. Zeke's pulse quickened. Did you report this to anyone on site? Tried. The manager just told me, some people need a push. I left, never coming back. Zeke thanked him for the information, ended the call, and stood motionless for a moment. That wasn't just aggressive sales, it was coercive. And Mitch had backed it up. He returned inside. Kenna was now dealing with a customer who looked frustrated. Papers spread across the desk. Chris leaned against the next workstation, scrolling on his phone. Hey, Zeke said, approaching him. Chris looked up, annoyed. What? You got a second? Zeke asked. Chris gave a dismissive glance at the mop bucket. I'm on break. Won't take long. Just wanted to ask about how trade-ins are handled here. Chris narrowed his eyes. Why do you care? Just curious. Heard some customers feel pressured during the process. Chris laughed once. They're buying cars, not ordering pizza. If they can't handle a little urgency, they should Uber home. Zeke didn't react. Ever had anyone accuse you of holding their keys? Chris's smile faded. People say a lot of things when they don't get what they want. That happened recently? Look, man, Chris said, stepping closer. You're a janitor. You clean toilets. You don't get to question how I close deals. Zeke stared back, expression calm. Noted. Chris turned and walked off, muttering something under his breath. Zeke returned to the supply closet, pulled out his notepad, and jotted down everything he'd learned. The list was getting longer. By 5, the receptionist gathered her things, preparing to leave. It was clear she'd be the first to clock out. Phones kept ringing. Kenna answered one while still finishing paperwork for a family financing a used minivan. Mitch strode past her desk. Wrap it up, Kenna. We're not running a daycare. Kenna didn't look up. They're signing now. Shouldn't be more than 15 minutes. 15 minutes is overtime we don't need, Mitch snapped. You know the policy. Zeke stepped out of the closet with a rag in hand, pretending to wipe the glass door. Mitch didn't notice. Kenna's voice stayed even. I'm not leaving a customer hanging. You don't make the rules, Mitch said, then turned to Chris, who was now back at his desk. You get that guy from earlier to close? Chris shrugged. Said he had to talk to his wife. Probably just fishing for numbers. Mitch rolled his eyes. Next time, don't give him the full spec sheet. Make them earn that. Zeke watched Kenna's hand tighten around her pen. At closing time, the lights dimmed, and the last customers filtered out. Zeke took the trash out back and found Rudy still under a car, flashlight clamped between his teeth. Still here? Zeke asked. Brakes are shot. Can't let it roll out like this. If I don't fix it, it'll sit till Monday and I'll be blamed for the delay. You been here since morning? Got in at 6:30. Zeke stared at him. No backup, no help? Nope, but I got a vending machine burrito and a busted knee brace. Living the dream. Zeke reached into his pocket and handed him a bottled water from the break room fridge. On the house. Rudy took it without a word, just nodded once. That night, Zeke sat in his car across the lot, engine off, hands on the wheel. The sun had dipped below the strip mall roofs, casting long shadows across the dealership. He had seen enough. One employee bending over backwards to help everyone. One service tech limping through a 14-hour shift with no support. One manager tolerating coercion, dismissing complaints, and enforcing policies that undermined basic decency. And one salesman playing games with customers like it was sport. Zeke looked down at his ring of keys. One of them opened the front office. Tomorrow he wouldn't need a mop. He'd walk through those doors as himself. Zeke arrived 30 minutes before opening. The dealership looked different in the morning light, quiet, sterile, almost peaceful. But he knew what waited inside. He sat in his truck a moment longer, watching the automatic lights flicker on one by one. Then he stepped out, no mop, no jumpsuit. Just a pressed navy blazer, dark jeans, and his ID badge clipped to his belt. He unlocked the front door himself. The receptionist, a young woman with a buzzed haircut and earbuds in, was the first to notice him. She stood from behind her desk, uncertain. "Sorry, are you here for service?" she asked. "No," Zeke said. "I'm here for everyone." Mitch arrived 5 minutes later, balancing a styrofoam coffee cup and his phone. He didn't look up until Zeke cleared his throat. "I need all staff in the showroom. Right now." Mitch blinked. "Who are you?" Zeke unhooked his badge and held it up. "Zeke Johnson. I own this dealership." The cup slipped slightly in Mitch's hand. His mouth opened, but nothing came out. "Call everyone in," Zeke said. "Now." Within 10 minutes, the sales team, receptionist, and finance manager stood in a loose cluster near the main desk. Rudy emerged from the service bay, wiping his hands on a towel, confusion etched deep between his brows. Kenna walked in last, expression unreadable. Zeke waited until everyone had settled, then stepped forward. "I spent the last 2 days working here under the name Zayden. You probably didn't notice. That's fine. I wasn't here to be noticed." He paused. "I was here to listen." Chris shifted his weight, arms crossed. Mitch kept his eyes fixed on the floor. "I've read the reports, the numbers, the reviews. But what I saw here went deeper than missed quotas or messy desks. I saw people stretched too thin. I saw customers misled. I saw a culture that rewards pressure and punishes honesty." Kenna's jaw stiffened slightly. Rudy leaned against the wall, arms folded. Zeke turned to face Mitch directly. "Let's start with management. Mitch, you've been running this location for how long?" "For years," Mitch said, voice low. "In that time, how many written customer complaints have been escalated to corporate?" Mitch hesitated. "A few. Not many. 8 in the last 6 months," Zeke said. 2 involving threats of police action. 1 where a customer reported being locked in a finance office. That's not a few. That's a pattern." Chris glanced toward the door, face tight. "I asked you all to gather because this is no longer a conversation behind closed doors. We're doing this in front of everyone. Because everyone here deserves to know what's changing." Zeke turned to Chris. "You pressured a young couple into accepting fake fees. You refused to return a customer's keys unless they stayed for a financing pitch. You've lied, manipulated, and treated customers like they owed you something. That ends today." Chris stepped forward, defiant. "That's how the game works. If we don't push, we don't sell." Zeke's tone didn't change. "It's not a game. This isn't a casino. You're not a closer. You're an employee. And you're done here." "What?" Chris's voice raised. "You can't just, I just did. Collect your things. You're terminated. Effective immediately." Chris looked around the room, waiting for someone to back him up. No one moved. He scoffed, grabbed his tablet from his desk, and stormed out without another word. Zeke turned back to the group. "Now, to the rest of you, what happened here didn't happen in a vacuum. Mitch, you allowed it. You defended it. You told employees not to speak up in front of customers. You ignored complaints and retaliated against those who pushed back." Mitch swallowed hard. "I was trying to meet targets. I didn't tell anyone to break rules. You didn't have to. You showed them that ethics were optional, that customer trust was disposable, that employees who stood up for people were inconvenient." Zeke took a breath. "You're also done. As of now, you're relieved of your duties." Mitch didn't argue. He simply turned, walked toward the back office, and disappeared behind the door. Zeke waited a moment, then faced the rest of the team. No one here is expected to be perfect. But I will never accept a culture where honesty is punished and pressure is rewarded. That ends now. He looked at Kenna. You've held this place together. I saw you take care of customers who came in confused, scared, or frustrated. You stayed late without complaint. You spoke up when it counted. He paused. Starting today, you're the interim floor lead. You'll get a 30% raise and full scheduling authority. Kenna blinked, barely reacting. What about the policies? You'll set them. Within reason, Zeke said. We'll talk through it, but I trust your judgment. She gave a single nod. Zeke turned to the receptionist. You've been answering phones, greeting customers, and doing basic paperwork without backup. That ends today. We're transferring one of our best coordinators here from the downtown branch. She'll be here by Monday. In the meantime, you'll get a daily support shift from a rotating staff pool, starting this afternoon. The receptionist's shoulders dropped slightly, as if someone had just taken a weight off her back. Finally, Zeke turned to Rudy. You're working solo in service. You've gone above and beyond on a busted knee and no coverage. That's not just unsafe, it's unacceptable. He stepped in closer. Starting today, you're getting a second tech. We'll fly someone in from the South Haven store until we can hire locally. You'll also get a full week off paid. Starting next Monday. Rudy exhaled through his nose. That's appreciated. You've earned more than that, Zeke said. He stepped back to address the entire group again. This place is going to change. That means better systems, better staffing, and better leadership. I'll be back every week until we've rebuilt the culture from the ground up. You're not alone anymore. No one spoke, but no one looked away either. Zeke gave a nod, then turned toward the office. As he walked, he heard soft movement behind him, Kenna stepping forward, clipboard in hand. Do you want the daily reports? She asked. Zeke smiled slightly. I want whatever you think matters. She nodded once, then turned. The rest of the team slowly dispersed, quieter than usual, but lighter somehow. In the office, Zeke sat at the desk that used to belong to Mitch. He opened the filing drawer, pulled out a stack of forms, and paused. There, tucked between two folders, was a printed list of upsell tactics, a cheat sheet of psychological tricks meant to trap customers in price escalations. Zeke flipped it over, ripped it in half, and dropped it in the trash. Outside, the sun had fully risen. The lot was already filling with early browsers. Kenna was at the front desk now, answering phones with steady confidence. The receptionist had already begun organizing her files. And Rudy, for the first time that week, had sat down in the break room. Just for a moment. Zeke leaned back in the chair and stared at the ceiling. The place still needed work, but it had heart. And now, finally, it had a chance. By midweek, the dealership was quieter than usual. Not because business had slowed, it hadn't, but because people were working with a different kind of focus. The tension that had once settled over the showroom like a heavy coat had thinned. Conversations were shorter, more purposeful. Phones rang, yes, but they were answered quickly. Customers were greeted with eye contact that didn't feel forced. Zeke stayed local. He didn't sit in Mitch's office. He moved. He stood near the front desk. He observed quietly from service. When he needed to meet with someone, he did it in the break room or by the vending machines. He wasn't trying to be a shadow anymore, but he also wasn't looking to take up space where people were trying to work. Late Thursday morning, he found Kenna standing just outside the finance office, holding a clipboard with a stack of customer forms. Her expression wasn't tense, but it was focused like someone running through a checklist in her head. You've got half a dozen sales this week already? Zeke said, nodding toward the paperwork. 7, if the Ford holds, she replied. The customer asked to sleep on it, so I gave them the full breakdown and told them we'd hold the price until noon tomorrow. Zeke raised an eyebrow. You didn't try to get them to sign today? They were nervous. I'd rather they come back because they trust us than rush and regret it. He gave a small nod. You've got someone shadowing you tomorrow. Brianna, from the North Park store. She's been struggling with retention and wants to see how you lead through close. Kenna didn't hesitate. I'll have her sit in on the Explorer deal. Couple with kids, limited credit. Should be a good example of how we walk through options without cornering them. Good, Zeke replied. That's exactly the kind of example we want spreading. He was about to turn away when she added, by the way, Chris came by yesterday. Zeke stopped, said he left something in his desk. Security let him in. He didn't speak to anyone, just grabbed a mug and a jacket and left. Zeke didn't comment at first. Then, he won't be back. Not here. Not at any store. Kenna nodded once and returned to her desk. She didn't need more than that. At lunch, Zeke walked through the service bay to check on Rudy. The second tech, a transfer named Alex, had arrived from South Haven late Tuesday. He was younger, newer, but he worked fast and listened closely. Rudy was still moving slow, the knee brace tighter today, but the lines in his face had softened slightly. You've got 3 in the queue, Zeke said, scanning the workboard. That's manageable. Rudy tilted his head toward the back. Alex is knocking out the battery swap now. I'll take the alignment once I finish the Hyundai. You taking the week off starting Monday like we discussed? I am, Rudy said. Wife already made plans. She booked a cabin. No cell reception. Zeke smiled. That's the point. Just then, Alex came around the corner, wiping his hands on a towel. Hey Rudy, customers asking if we can check the struts while we've got the hood open. Rudy nodded. Tell her we'll inspect them, no charge. Just list it as a courtesy check. Alex nodded and jogged back toward the car. Zeke waited until he was gone before speaking again. He's good, he said. Rudy didn't disagree. He listens. Doesn't talk over me like the last guy. Think he'd relocate permanently? Wouldn't hurt to ask. Zeke made a note on his phone. Later that afternoon, a man walked in wearing a windbreaker with a faded delivery company logo. He looked around, holding a printed email in one hand and a car key in the other. Zeke saw Kenna approach him with a calm demeanor. You looking for someone specific? She asked. My son bought a car here last week. He's 19, said the check engine light came on the next day. I told him to bring it back, but he's working doubles and can't get away. Kenna extended her hand. Let's take a look. I'm Kenna, one of the leads. Within minutes, she had the finance records pulled and the warranty details open. Zeke watched from a distance as she explained the process clearly. There was no defensiveness, no attempt to shift blame. She offered to have the car picked up that evening, at no cost, and promised a full diagnostic by Monday. The man's posture eased. Appreciate that. I wasn't looking to cause a scene. Just want him taken care of. That's what we're here for. When he left, Zeke walked over. You handled that well. He was upset, not unreasonable. There's a difference, she said. It was getting close to closing when the district HR rep, Maya, arrived. She had been briefed earlier in the week about Mitch's removal and was there to conduct exit paperwork and begin the hiring process for a new general manager. They met in the back office, where the blinds were still drawn and the air smelled faintly of stale coffee grounds. We've got 3 internal candidates from other stores, she said, but none have Kenna's field experience. Zeke leaned back slightly. She doesn't want the GM title. I offered. Maya raised an eyebrow. Too much. She said she'd rather lead the floor than manage the schedule. I respect that. Then we build around her, Maya said, flipping through her notes. I've got a short list of external candidates. We'll run background and compatibility checks. No one gets in without spending at least a day shadowing first. That's the new rule, Zeke agreed. Maya paused before standing. Anything else? One thing, Zeke said. If any candidate brushes off customer handling as beneath them, they're off the list. I don't care how impressive the resume is. She nodded and left to begin the interviews. That night, just after the last customer left, Zeke stood at the edge of the lot. The wind had picked up slightly, rustling the flags that lined the perimeter. Most of the team had already clocked out. A few were still finishing paperwork in the back. Kenna came out, pulling on a light jacket. "You heading out?" she asked. "In a minute." Just needed air. She stood beside him, silent for a moment before speaking again. "You ever think about selling the company?" Zeke didn't answer right away. "I've had offers. Couple from national chains. One from a private equity group. And," he looked out across the asphalt, "most of them only cared about margins. Not people." Kenna didn't press. "I started this because I believed we could sell cars without selling out. Somewhere along the way, I stopped checking if we were still doing that. You're checking now." He gave a short nod. "That's not going to stop again." Kenna turned to leave but paused at the door. "You should come by Saturday. The couple with the Ford is bringing their daughter. She wants to see if the back seat fits her cello." Zeke smiled. "I'll be here." She walked inside, and Zeke stayed a few moments longer. The lot was quiet now. The lights buzzed overhead. The wind settled. And for the first time in weeks, he didn't feel like a stranger at his own business.